My thumb hovered over the banking app icon for what felt like an hour. My chest was tight, my stomach was in knots, and my eyes were burning. I hadn't opened this app in 4 months. I was terrified of a piece of software, but when I finally tapped it and saw a negative number staring back at me, followed by 6 lines of declined transactions, I realized I wasn't just broke, I was a coward, and that realization changed everything. Hi, I'm Daniel Brooks, and you're watching Wealthic Voyage. Today we're diving into the paralyzing psychology of financial avoidance, and how staring at the ugliest truth of your life is the only way to actually save it. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly in your head right now. When is the last time you opened your banking app and actually looked at your balance? Not just a quick glance to see if a deposit cleared, but actually looked at the numbers, read the transactions, and faced the reality of where your money went. If your heart rate just spiked a little bit, you are not alone. Why are we so afraid of our own money? It's just a number on a screen. It can't physically hurt you. It can't yell at you. Yet, for millions of us, checking our bank account triggers the exact same fight or flight response as hearing a burglar break into your house in the middle of the night. Why does money have this terrifying power over us? I'll tell you why. Because we don't just link our self-worth to our net worth. We link our morality to our spending habits. Deep down, when we overspend, we don't just think, I made a math error. We think, I am a failure. I am undisciplined. I am broken. And human beings will do almost anything to avoid feeling like a failure, including burying their heads in the sand until the sand collapses on top of them. Let me take you back to my rock bottom, so you can see exactly how this dark psychology plays out in real life. At the time of this story, I was 28 years old. I had a decent job making $55,000 a year. On paper, to the outside world, I was a functioning adult. I had an apartment, a car, and I went out with my friends on the weekends. But inside, I was decaying. My avoidance didn't start with my bank account. It started with small, innocent-seeming habits. It started with deleting credit card alerts from my phone because they stressed me out. Then, it evolved into throwing unopened bank statements directly into the recycling bin. I told myself, I'll look at it all on Sunday when I have time to do a proper budget. But Sunday never came. Have you ever told yourself that lie? I'll deal with it later. Later is the most dangerous word in the English language when it comes to personal finance, because while you are waiting for later, interest is compounding, late fees are stacking, and your anxiety is quietly multiplying in the background. Let me give you a real-life example of how fast this spiral happens when you take your eyes off the wheel. I had a credit card with a $5,000 limit. I was using it for groceries and gas, telling myself I would pay it off at the end of the month. But one month, I had an unexpected car repair. I put $800 on the card. That $800 meant I didn't have enough in my checking account to pay off the full balance, so I paid the minimum. The next month, I was already $800 behind. So when I needed to buy a birthday gift for a friend, I just put it on the card. Then I needed new tires. Put it on the card. Then I went out to dinner because I was stressed about the card balance and I just wanted to feel normal for one night. Put it on the card. This is the dopamine trap of debt. When you use a credit card to buy something, your brain gets the reward chemical, the dopamine, from the purchase, but it doesn't feel the pain of the cost because no physical cash left your hand. It feels like free money, until it doesn't. By the time I finally stopped avoiding the notifications, that $5,000 card was maxed out. But instead of facing it, I did something even more destructive. I opened a new card, a balance transfer card. I moved the $5,000 to the new card to get a 0% interest rate for 12 months. I felt like a financial genius. I thought I had hacked the system. But do you know what I actually did? I freed up the credit limit on my original card. And within 3 months, because I had never addressed the underlying habit of spending to numb my emotions, I had run the first card back up to $3,000. Now, I had $8,000 in credit card debt spread across 2 cards, and I was paying $400 a month just in minimum payments that weren't even touching the principal. I was drowning, but I refused to look at the water. My daily life became an exercise in psychological gymnastics just to survive. Do you know what it feels like to go to the grocery store with a cart full of food, swipe your debit card, and have it declined? It feels like the ground disappears from beneath your feet. The cashier asks, "Do you have another card?" And you have to stand there, in front of a line of strangers, swiping a maxed-out credit card to buy basic groceries. Your face burns. You want to evaporate. I started mapping out which gas stations would let me pump gas before the charge officially went through the system. I was literally floating checks in the digital age, trying to time my direct deposit to hit before my rent check bounced. I was living in a state of perpetual panic, and because of that panic, my performance at work slipped. I couldn't focus. I was irritable with my friends. I couldn't sleep. Money avoidance doesn't just bankrupt your bank account. It bankrupts your soul. It consumes every ounce of your mental bandwidth until you are a shell of a person, just going through the motions. And that brings us to the night I finally opened the app. The night that changed my life. It was a Tuesday. I was sitting on the edge of my bathtub at 1 a.m. I had just tried to buy a $10 prescription at the pharmacy, and my card declined. I had a massive headache, and I just wanted medicine. I couldn't avoid it anymore. The consequence had finally become more painful than the fear of looking. I opened my primary checking account. Balance, $214. I opened my savings account. Balance, $0. I opened credit card A. Balance, $5,200. I opened credit card B. Balance, $3,100. I was staring at over $8,500 in high-interest debt, a negative checking account, and zero savings. I broke down. I sat on that cold tile floor and I cried. Not because of the math, but because of the shame. I hated myself. I thought, how could you be this stupid? You have a college degree. You read books. How did you let this happen? Have you ever been there? Have you ever felt that crushing weight of financial shame? If you are there right now, I need you to listen to me very closely in this moment. The tears on that bathroom floor were the most productive thing I had done in 2 years, because avoiding the number gives the number power. Looking at the number strips it of its power. The next morning, I didn't magically figure out how to pay off $8,500, but I did figure out how to stop the bleeding. I realized that my problem wasn't a math problem, it was a psychology problem. I was using money as an emotional anesthetic. I was spending to escape the stress of spending. It was a snake eating its own tail. So I implemented a system, and it's a system that anyone watching this can start today. It's built on 3 pillars. Pillar 1, radical visibility. Financial avoidance thrives in the dark. You have to turn on the lights. I downloaded a simple budgeting app. But here was the trick. I didn't use it to restrict myself. I used it purely as an observer. For 2 weeks, I didn't try to spend less. I just tracked every single penny. If I bought a $2 coffee, I logged it. If I paid a bill, I logged it. Why? Because tracking removes the phantom anxiety. When you avoid your money, your brain assumes the worst. Your brain thinks, we probably have negative $10,000. But when you actually look, your brain says, oh, we only have negative 200. Okay, that's a problem, but it's not the apocalypse. You cannot fight an enemy you cannot see. Tracking your money makes the invisible visible. Pillar 2. Friction. Credit cards are the enemy of someone with avoidance issues. They abstract the pain of spending. I took a pair of scissors, and on a live stream with a few friends for accountability, I cut up both of my credit cards. I switched to a cash envelope system for my variable spending, groceries, eating out, and fun money. Let me tell you how powerful cash is from a psychological standpoint. When you have $100 in an envelope for groceries and you put a $40 item in your cart, you physically feel the envelope get lighter. You realize that if you buy this, you only have $60 left for the rest of the week. It creates an immediate physical consequence. Credit cards allow you to trespass into your future self's wallet and steal their money. Cash forces you to stay in the present moment. I didn't stop eating out completely. I didn't punish myself. I just gave myself $50 a week in cash for fun. If the cash was gone, I went home. It was harsh, but it was the shock to my system that I needed. Pillar 3. The pay yourself first. Psychological shift. This is where most people get traditional advice wrong. The gurus say, pay yourself first so your money grows. But for someone with financial trauma, paying yourself first means something entirely different. It means proving to yourself that you are worth protecting. When I got my paycheck, the very first automatic transfer I set up was $50 into a separate savings account. Not because $50 is going to make me rich. $50 is nothing. But seeing that savings balance slowly creep up from $0 to $50 to $150, it rewired my brain. It shifted my identity from, I am someone who destroys my finances, to, I am someone who protects my finances. And then came the grind. The actual math of getting out of debt. Remember, I had $8,500 in debt. I was making $55,000 a year. I sat down and looked at my life. I was paying $1,400 a month for an apartment. I was paying $350 a month for a car payment, plus $120 for insurance. I was house poor and car poor, just so I could project an image of success to people who didn't even care about me. This is a massive financial mistake we make. We buy things we can't afford with money we don't have to impress people we don't like, all while avoiding the reality that we are one missed paycheck from ruin. I made a brutal decision. I broke my lease, moved into a tiny studio apartment that cost $850 a month, and I sold my car. I bought a $2,000 beat-up Honda Civic with cash from my emergency fund, which I had to rebuild later, and I took the bus when I couldn't drive the Civic. By downgrading my life, I freed up almost $700 a month in cash flow. I took that $700, combined it with the $400 I was paying in minimums, and I attacked the debt using the avalanche method, paying off the highest interest rate first. Let me tell you, the first 3 months were agonizing. It felt like I was pushing a boulder up a mountain, and it kept rolling back down on me. The habits of avoidance were screaming at me to just use a credit card to make life easier. But I held on to the vision of that bathroom floor. I refused to go back there. And then, around month 4, a miracle happened. The minimum payment on my highest interest card dropped because the principal had shrunk. Suddenly, more of my money was going toward the actual balance instead of just interest. The snowball started rolling downhill. It took me 14 months. 14 months of radical visibility, cash friction, and living in a studio apartment. But one Tuesday afternoon, almost exactly a year to the day after I sat on that bathtub floor, I made the final payment. I hit the submit button on a $340 payment. The screen refreshed. Current balance, $0. I stared at it. I didn't cheer, I didn't cry, I just took a deep, shaking breath. It felt like I had been holding my breath underwater for 2 years, and I had finally broken the surface. But here is the real secret of this story. The debt was never the main problem. The debt was just a symptom of the fact that I was terrified of reality. I was afraid to check my bank account because I was afraid to face myself. I was afraid to admit that I was falling behind. I was afraid to ask for help. Money psychology dictates that we will always move away from pain. For years, looking at my bank account caused me immense psychological pain, so I moved away from it. The trick to changing your life is learning how to associate pain with avoidance and pleasure with reality. Once I realized that avoiding my money cost me $8,500, sleepless nights and panic attacks. Looking at a spreadsheet didn't seem so painful anymore. A spreadsheet is just paper. It can't hurt you. But the consequences of ignoring it will destroy you. Which brings me to the life lesson. The ultimate takeaway I want you to grab onto right now. If you are watching this and you know there is an app on your phone that you are terrified to open, stop what you are doing. Do not wait until you are sitting on a bathroom floor at 1 a.m. with a declined debit card. You have to understand that avoidance is a luxury you cannot afford. The anxiety you feel right now while you are avoiding the number is 1,000 times worse than the reality of the number itself. The fear of the monster in the closet is always worse than the monster itself, because when you finally open the closet door, you realize it's just a bunch of coats and some old shoes. It's just math. It's just a number, and numbers can be fixed. You can't fix a $5,000 debt by ignoring it. It will turn into a $10,000 debt. But you can fix a $5,000 debt by looking at it, making a plan, and chipping away at it one day at a time. Forgive yourself for the mistakes that got you here. You didn't do this because you are stupid. You did this because you are human and you were trying to protect your emotions, but starting today, you are going to protect your future instead. Open the app. Look at the number. Write it down on a piece of paper. Look at it in the light of day. Take away its power, because the moment you stop running from your money is the exact moment you take back control of your life. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this story hit home, share it with someone who might need the courage to look at their own numbers. Hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the psychology of wealth. Keep your eyes open, keep facing reality, and I'll see you in the next one.